AI experts across New Zealand have signed an open letter to the government calling for urgent regulatory action before more harm is caused. They're calling for proper regulations, not only to prevent deepfakes and fraud and the loss of intellectual property, but also to provide businesses with a clear path forward. Well, Chris McGavin, who's the Lenson McGavin AI Director, joins me now from Wellington. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Garth. How are you?
I'm really great. It is you there. It's not a deepfake that you've whipped up in the spare time.
Who knows?
Good point. What are the regulations or what is the gap between what we need and where we're at the moment?
Yeah, well, we're sort of unfortunately total laggards, really. We look over, Australia are possibly scuppering their regulations a bit, but they were looking at enacting sort of really meaningful mandatory guardrails around AI, in particular looking at how they could address high-risk areas. And then if you look over at the EU, they've got their very, very large, very impressive EU AI Act, which again is a sort of risk management framework, which delineates sort of high-risk uses of AI. So instances where maybe AI is being used in the justice system or in immigration or sort of financial services, and then much lower risk settings. So yeah, we've basically got very, very little.
Isn't that fair though? I mean, we're a small country. We're not a trendsetter in this area. We probably can't tell big AI companies exactly how to operate. So aren't we always going to be fast followers at best?
Well, we actually were a trendsetter, strangely enough. In 2020, we enacted a thing, well, we didn't enact, but we put forward a piece of policy called the Algorithm Charter for Aotearoa New Zealand. And that was a sort of soft law thing, but it was one of the first times in the world that a country had sort of attempted to enact regulation for algorithms.
What did that do?
It just basically looked at the time there was a lot of talk about sort of predictive policing models in the US, and it really looked at how you could sort of cancel out bias, or how you could manage bias. You can't really ever cancel out bias, right? But how you could look to manage bias, and how you could be aware of bias, and how maybe we could be more transparent in our use of these algorithms.
Right, so it's really more about how we're using AI rather than trying to control what it can do necessarily. Because we've seen a lot of this sort of stuff in the US, with people taking private action against companies like OpenAI for doing horrendous things like, recommending how their children can commit suicide. In one case, I think it's going to be tested. So it's more about how agencies, government, police, whoever are using AI, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. And these big AI companies want government contracts. They're fairly lucrative. We're not the biggest country in the world, but we do have a valuable sort of say in what vendors we're looking to use. Maybe possibly not great if our government is using a sort of generative AI tool that is self-identified as Mecha Hitler, which Grok did famously.
Yeah, there's, every day there's another instance of something that's sort of hallucinated or thrown up or caused a problem. But that's just kind of par for the course with a new technology, isn't it? At what point does a government step in and say, this is what we want it to do, or this is what we won't let it to do with some certainty? Why right now are you making this call?
Well, I think right now it's better than sort of yesterday. It's nowhere near as good as yesterday. It's better than tomorrow or next week, right? We're sort of, again, like I said, we're laggards in this. We need to do something. As you said, there's news reporting every week that generative AI, for instance, is causing quite a lot of harm. At the same time, there's a lot of pressure for agencies, for businesses to actually go ahead and use generative AI. Some may not be aware of the risks. Some may not have contingencies around the risks. They may be using generative AI or any AI in particular in instances it's not particularly well suited for. And I think, now is better than tomorrow. It's better than next week. And because we're kind of behind the eight ball, we can actually go ahead and look at these other jurisdictions and take what we like from their AI rules and kind of begin to look at carving out something that's really high quality for New Zealand.